What is your favourite interview question related to safeguarding, and how is this particular question of value?
Okay, I'm going to read one of the questions that we've used to interview here. Safeguarding children is an important part of our work. Can you give an example of how you have contributed to making the school a safer environment for children? So that question is really all about relationships, and it's all about what teachers do or staff do to support children in feeling connected and feeling safe with them. And it's looking at what the ethos in the classroom is really like, and the things that teachers do to make the classroom ethos supportive and welcoming and safe and secure. So you'll be looking at how staff interact with children, what they say and do, make sure we're always believing them, making sure that we're not dismissing anything that they're sharing or saying with them, and that we're making sure that we're creating the right environment where children can come to staff and share something of relevance or concern that they've got or feeling that they've got. It's making sure that if it's a child protection concern, that we're managing that in the right way. So we have to make sure that the questions we're asking are not leading, and that we're focusing on the who, the what, the where and the when, and that no other questions are really asked that require the child to be a bit judgmental about what happened or what they might have experienced. It's making sure that staff, having recorded that information, that they're then empowered and they know what to do with that. So it's making sure that they then pass that on to the child protection officer within the school. That would normally be the head teacher, or at least, at very least, the deputy head, a member of the school management team, and it's passed on in a timely fashion. It's making sure that that concern isn't just left on the head teacher's desk. I want to make sure that that information has got directly to a person. If the head teacher's busy or tied up, go to the deputy, insist on seeing the deputy and sharing the concern as soon as you can, because there might be some actions that might need to be taken on the back of that concern or disclosure that's been made. But I think I would focus very much on the safeguarding side of things in terms of the relationships and the children feeling confident and being empowered to speak with the staff in the classroom. What not to answer, I think it's about making sure that staff are not dismissive, or that couldn't have happened, or making comments actually that are quite judgmental that then suddenly take the power away from the child and undermine the child's confidence. It's like you wouldn't ask a question, or why did that happen? Because that's not really a question that the child needs to answer. They're sharing a concern about what's happened, and we want to make sure that the child is feeling safe and secure. So it's being really careful around the questioning that you are asking at the time when the child's sharing information with you.
That's great, thank you.
The other aspect I would maybe mention is that if you are unsuccessful at interview, is you can ask for feedback, and I think that's really important, because there might be only one question that you were really not quite close enough on in terms of being compared to somebody who was successful. But by all means, head teachers are able to, when they can, provide feedback for you. So do ask for a feedback interview at the end of after an unsuccessful interview. How do I know a candidate is a good fit for the school? It's difficult getting as much information as we need to from the application form. So an application form really needs to be as personalised to the school as you can make it. And I think you're looking to at the very least, mention the school by name that you're applying to. And more often than not, people will be making multiple applications to schools, but you still need to kind of tweak or tailor each application form to the school as much as you can do. So the way you can find out about the school in advance of making an application form is you can look at their school website, you can look at any social media platforms that the school has, and I would also suggest looking at school inspection reports from Education Scotland and looking on there and finding out what you can gather, and then using that information. That could be mentioned within the application form that you're doing, or actually on the interview itself, where you need to be saying, having looked at your school website, I can see you're very passionate about X, Y and Z, and then using that within the answers. Or equally, if you can get hold of or a glimpse of the school improvement plan. That's quite a powerful tool of gathering information about a school, because you then can begin to match up your skills with the skills or kind of the desirable qualities that the school is looking for. So I really want it to be a personalised approach, and not to feel like a very kind of bland and kind of impersonal application form. I want to see what you're interested in, what you're passionate about. But I think in terms of answering the questions within an application form, I want to know what you've done, by all means, but actually the important part is what's the impact of what you've done. Did it improve people learning? Did it improve opportunities? Did it raise confidence amongst some groups of children within the class? So keep thinking about what the impact is and talking about your role in that. It's all very well talking about a development that you've been involved with, but what is it you actually did within that working group or within that development? So keep shining, and you've got to shout about yourself as much as you can do. And I don't think that's something that comes very easy for a lot of people. And I think culturally, Scottish people are really bad at blowing their own trumpet. But the application form really has to stand out, because we could be looking at 20, 30 application forms, and you've really got to sell yourself and make you sound all singing and all dancing and to be the best person that you can be. But what I would say is that the application form is what gets you the interview, and you then have to revisit that on the actual day of the interview. It's everything that you say and do on the actual day of interview that gets recorded and written down. That's what gets you the job. So you have to revisit some of the points that were covered in the application form in order to support your interview.
That's a great answer. Thank you very much, Richard. So the next question for you is, you have 2 interviewees who give astounding interviews. What might give one the edge over the other?
It's nice to have that luxury. And I think what you're looking to do is, these people have been chosen to be interviewed, so they've already been narrowed down out of the group or the field of people that are there. And I think you're then looking at, the answers and how we're grading them. We don't give numbers here, but we tend to look at met, partially met, or not met in terms of the criteria for each of the questions. So if both candidates had scored exactly the same, it then comes down to a kind of feeling and what you're looking for in a staff member. So, I would look for staff to be, effective communicators, because teaching is all about being a strong communicator. We're looking for staff to be welcoming and to be nurturing, and that's got to come across in what they're doing, because we've got to look at any barriers to engagement or inclusion that families or children might have within their learning, and looking at making sure that I'm appointing somebody who's able to overcome those barriers. So you've got to be able to indicate that you have that capacity and that enthusiasm to try and look at barriers to learning or engagement and overcome them as much as you can do. So I'm looking for, personable people. It might be as well that there's a wider opportunity, a wider achievement, that you could bring. It might be that you've got skills or a passion for something else that you might look to bring to the school, and that's where you selling yourself at interview would add to that. So if you've picked up on the fact that we're developing basketball in our school, you might want to name drop the fact that you've got experience of coaching basketball teams. If you're looking at something like outdoor learning, I've run an outdoor learning club in my school for the last 3 years. So it's all about you picking up on what the school's looking for and building that into your answers. But being personable, strong interpersonal skills, being committed, being passionate about what you do is equally important too.
That's lovely, thank you very much. And the next question is, what are common mistakes interviewees make?
The main one is being quite listy in answers, and I think we've all been there, and we've all done our preparation for interviews, and we've created a list of responses that we want to make sure. But literally, you can see some people, and then actually physically counting, and I'm not wanting that. By all means, talk about these things, but actually talk about what you did, what the impact of these things were. I think people who haven't really done any research about the school kind of stand out as well, because our school website has lots of information on there, but equally our Twitter is quite prolific, and there's lots of information that you can find out about our school there. And I want to show that you've done a little bit of research about the school. So there might be something that we've got in up our sleeves in terms of what our school does or has as a resource, and I'd like to see you mention that at interview to make sure that you're showing that it's not just our school you're looking to get a job in, it's our school you're looking to get a job in. So it could be a support that we're using regularly, and that we've talked about that a lot. I need you to kind of mention that at interview. That'd be the main one I would suggest.
That's terrific, thank you very much. And this brings me to my last question. What's your general advice to prospective interviewees?
It's all about preparation and planning, and I think you've got to try and do your research a little bit about what the school is about, where it is, the community it serves, and I think you need to understand where our community, where any school sits within its setting, and I think we're at the heart of our community. We need to understand that, and I need to know that you understand that. So I think you want to make sure that you're really understanding what our school community looks like. So if it's an area of social deprivation, you need to be acknowledging that and what you're talking about. If it's areas of where there's not a lot of resources or a wider achievement, you need to look at what can the school offer or bring into that, and you can be part of that. I think you need to anticipate where some of the questions might come from, and I would suggest that looking at, you would normally get a question that the first question is normally designed to try and set you at ease, or hopefully set you at ease as much as an interview can. But it's all about maybe talking about you personally and a little bit what you might bring to the school, or what do you normally get a question about describing a a lesson that went well or a series of lessons that went well within a curricular area. And I think you've got to plan and think about what that is, not just a lesson that went well because you think it went well. What was it about that lesson or that series of lessons that went well? Was it the fact that it was well planned? Was it high levels of pupil engagement? Did you build in really strong plenaries or stop mid-session check-ins to look at what went well? Unpick the actual learning and teaching side of it, the pedagogy about the lesson that went well, because I'm wanting to hear you talk about the pedagogy within your kind of answers to questions and as part of the interview process. I'm not just want you to say it was a good lesson, I really liked it. It needs to be a bit more kind of deeper reflection on that. But equally, looking at some parts of the questions and within kind of how good does a score 4 quite often feature in interview questions, looking at 2.3 and looking at 3.2, there'll be quite often questions there that you can look at that build into your answers. And I think if you can have a look at those and keep those at the back of your mind, that will enable you to have a strong interview and leave a good impression.
That's great. Thank you very much, Richard. That's the last of my questions. I really appreciate you taking the time today, and I think people who are watching this video will find lots of value in the things that you've had to share.
No problem at all. Happy to help. Thank you.